On the Choose to Think podcast, I will encourage and empower you to engage and optimize your best thought life in practical, meaningful ways so that you can live day by day in joy, peace, and God's purpose despite all externals. This is Victoria, and welcome back to the Choose to Think podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode is a little different, and I think it may become one of my favorite formats because these are the kinds of questions women ask me all the time privately. It might be through an email or comments or even in some of my social circles, my friend groups. They're questions about overthinking, emotional exhaustion, mindset struggles, fear, faith, people-pleasing, healing, and what's actually happening in our brains when we feel stuck. So today we're going to do a Choose to Think Q&A. These are representative questions from the kinds of conversations I know many women like you are having internally, even if they aren't always saying these questions out loud. I'm Victoria. Thank you so much for joining me today on the show. Question number 1, why do I keep returning to the same negative thought patterns even though I know better? Okay, so maybe you've read the books, listened to podcasts, highlighted the Bible verses, and even had moments where you felt, quote, free. But then one stressful conversation happens, and suddenly you spiral right back into fear, insecurity, catastrophizing, or self-criticism. And let me just tell you, I do this all the time. Sometimes, some days, I'm really spot on with my thinking. I'm aware. I use the choose method, that framework, to get out of those toxic thought loops that sometimes I find myself in. I'm not giving way to negativity, and I'm just really doing a great job. And then there are other days when I'm like, somebody's hijacked my brain. You know, one of the biggest misconceptions about transformation is the idea that insight alone changes you, but your brain actually changes through repetition. If you've practiced worry for 20 years, for example, your brain has become so efficient at traveling down that pathway. Your brain loves familiarity, even when the familiarity is unhealthy. That's why change can feel frustratingly slow at first. Or even if you've been practicing the change like I have, and you've enjoyed that transformation like I have, it doesn't mean that sometimes you won't get stuck again, or you won't kind of dip back into those negative toxic thought loops, even though typically you're not really doing that. You're doing much better. But change can really feel frustrating and slow at first. But encourage your heart. You're not failing. You're rewiring. And rewiring your brain requires awareness, interruption, repetition, emotional regulation, and a whole lot of grace. So what you might do is just notice the thought before you actually start arguing with it. And go ahead and name the pattern specifically, like, this is catastrophizing, like I keep making everything doomsday. Replace what if everything falls apart with what is actually true right now. Question 2, how do I know if a thought is conviction from God or condemnation from fear? You make a mistake as a mom, as a wife, a friend, or a leader, and suddenly your mind says, you're failing, you're selfish, you're not spiritual enough, you're disappointing everyone. Have you ever been there? Well, the voice of condemnation is harsh, vague, hopeless, and shaming. The voice of God may convict, but he does not crush. Conviction says something like this: this needs attention. Condemnation says you are the problem. One leads toward healing. The other leads toward hiding. So what you can do if you find yourself not really knowing the difference and you're just aware of the dialogue that you're having inside your head is you can say, okay, does this thought produce clarity or confusion? Does it move me toward God or away from him? Is there hope attached to it? Is it specific and constructive? Or is it global and shame-filled? Try that. Question 3, why do I feel emotionally exhausted all the time, even when life looks fine on the outside? Let's just say you're functioning, you're working, you're showing up, you're making dinner, you're answering texts, you're going to church, you're smiling in public, but internally you feel tired all the time. Many women are carrying invisible mental loads that their nervous systems were never designed to sustain indefinitely. Emotional exhaustion often comes from chronic overthinking. Okay, I'm right there in that one. I've recently just discovered so much about overthinking. Matter of fact, I just posted today on the Choose to Think Inspirational podcast page on Facebook about my tendency to overthink. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what does it mean to have the mind of Christ? Because I don't think that Christ ever did any of these cognitive distortions, right? He wouldn't have been prone to those like we are. We're prone to some of these cognitive distortions like catastrophizing or overthinking, generalizations, all the put downs. I know that I have a tendency to analyze. And what I didn't know is that oftentimes I do that because I want to be in alignment or regain that sense of stability, emotional stability in my life. So I'll just replay conversations. I'll analyze ad nauseum, really. And it's so not helpful. And it really doesn't bring the peace that I'm actually after. And that's emotionally exhausting to do, to be so hyper vigilant, to, get into all the people pleasing, unresolved grief, decision fatigue. Ever done that? Trying to make a decision and you're like, go left, go right, go left, go right, go left, go right. And it's just so emotionally exhausting. It's that constant self-monitoring. And that's not what God has in mind when he says, his word says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I remember early on in my Choose to Think ministry, when I was just learning to take thoughts captive, it was exhausting because we have so many thoughts. And I'm like, good gravy. How could I possibly take all these thoughts captive? But it became easier over time because most of the thoughts are repeated and they're easy to pick out. They're the lion's share even negative. So you can kind of pick out thoughts and thought clusters and bring them under submission to Christ in that way. But I can tell you that all of this can be extremely exhausting. It's really neurological. If you're really feeling emotionally exhausted, you could reduce unnecessary cognitive overload, stop consuming upsetting content all day long, practice emotional honesty with God. Just tell him how you're really doing. Build small moments of nervous system regulation into your day, such as walking, deep breathing, prayer, worship, quiet, sunlight, and then resting without feeling guilty. I'm so grateful that the Bible says in Matthew, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. There is rest for that kind of emotional overload. And don't be hard on yourself as you're trying to deal with those times that you're just feeling emotionally exhausted. It may be that you're also physically exhausted and you just need to refuel your emotional tank, your physical tank, your spiritual tank, and just plug into the Lord and ask him to help you with that, because his yoke is easy and his burden is light. And certainly I know that's what you want to be. You want to be yoked with Christ in everything that you do. Okay, here's another question. Question number 4, how do I stop replaying conversations and overthinking everything I said? Okay, here we go with overthinking again, right? Let's say you leave lunch with a friend and you spend the next 4 hours wondering, did I talk too much? Did I offend her? Why did I say that? Do they secretly not like me? Overthinking is often your brain trying to create safety through analysis. That's what I was saying a moment ago. Your brain believes this. It says, if I replay this enough, I can prevent rejection. That is so false, because replaying rarely produces the peace that you're after. It usually only produces anxiety. So you and I both have to learn how to stop playing those scripts over and over and over again. So the practical tip here would be to interrupt all the post-conversational spirals quickly, kind of nip them in the bud. You can say, am I seeking clarity or certainty? Kind of name it. And then refuse to mind read. Do you do that? I do that all the time. I've even given Jim, my husband, permission to say, okay, Victoria, you're mind reading. Because I'll come to him about a situation. I'll be like, I just know that's what she's thinking. Or, something along those lines. And he's like, mind reading. Because the truth is, I don't know what someone is thinking, really and truly. And I can make up all these stories and this whole narrative in my head. And it always puts me in a bad light, right? And I can go over it over and over and over it. So I have to limit that kind of rumination time, and you can do that too. So you and I together could stop mind reading. limit the rumination time, and redirect our attention outward instead of inward. It's like that belly button gazing that we can do, and I'm like an expert at it. I always thought it was like helpful, and it's that I'm logical and I like to think through things and I'm very thorough and I like to gain clarity of thought and mind. But the truth is, if I'm not careful, I get stuck in these loops that are not helpful and they're certainly not healthy. And they just basically wear me out. So remember that not every awkward moment in your life or not every relational situation that's going on that you may not like is actually evidence of rejection. So don't take it in that way. Question 5. Why do I struggle to rest without feeling guilty? You finally sit down and within minutes you feel restless or guilty because there's always something else you, quote, should be doing. For many women like you, like me, productivity quietly became our identity. Some of us learned that being useful means being valuable. Slowing down means you're lazy. Rest must be earned, but rest is not a reward for burnout. Rest is part of God's design. So if that's you and you just struggle to rest, again, all these questions that you have and issues that you're facing, I too am facing. I can work from sun up till sundown, and then at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I want to just veg out or something. And I feel guilty for doing that because there's no productivity attached to it. So I can tell you that as I'm writing the Sacred Thinking devotional, that I'm really researching and investigating and studying why personally I have some of these tendencies. And all these questions that I'm asking right now today that you've had, you're going to see those in the devotional as well. And you're going to see a lot of personal stories that I tell that are so relatable and that help you to understand, like me, what's going on in your brain and why so much of what we struggle with is physiological. We've thought this way for so long, and we're going to unwire our brains with all that junk and rewire it with God's truth. And it's going to be so worth it. I am so motivated because I've seen change in my life, and just a little bit of change has made a massive difference. And I'm excited about that. And I want to share that with you as well. So if you're one who just can't rest without feeling guilty, there's probably something deeper there. And maybe your identity is attached to your work and your productivity. God says something different. So maybe you and I together can practice short intentional pauses. If like sitting and watching a movie feels like too much and makes you feel too guilty or something that you're not productive, then just try to take shorter pauses and start there. Start little teeny baby steps toward learning how to rest and enjoy the rest and celebrate the rest. And you can stop apologizing for setting healthy boundaries. It's not necessary to apologize for doing something that's healthy for you. Try to learn the difference between laziness and restoration. Rest is the first 4 letters of restoration. Start thinking of rest as restoration. It's helpful. It's beneficial. It's healthy. It's needed. It's necessary. It's God ordained. So schedule rest before you actually reach the end of your rope and collapse and have to do it, right? Remember that your Father leads you beside quiet waters, and He will restore your soul. Question 6. What do I do when my emotions feel stronger than my faith? Ooh, I've been there too. Scripture is true, but anxiety still feels loud to you. Grief still hurts. Fear still rises. Discouragement still lingers. They've been trapped in those or just kind of consumed by those. Strong emotions do not mean weak faith. Let me say that again. Just because you have strong emotions, it doesn't mean that you have weak faith. Faith is not the absence of emotional struggle. Faith is learning how to anchor yourself in God's truth while emotions rise and fall. David did this constantly in the Psalms. He acknowledged emotion honestly while redirecting himself toward truth. So try to stop shaming yourself for having emotions in the first place. They're God-given. They're emotions. It's okay to feel things. Feelings in and of themselves are not negative. They're kind of like neutral in a way. They're just feelings. How you respond and react to them may be a different ball of wax, and you certainly don't want to get trapped in any one feeling for an extended period of time because it could be really unhealthy for you. But process your feelings with God instead of suppressing them. That's where journaling is so helpful. Pour out your heart to the Lord. He hears you, He sees you, He knows you better than anybody else, and He's going to help you through those tough emotions that you may be feeling. Be sure to separate your feelings from facts. That's sometimes hard to do, isn't it? But constantly ask yourself, what do I know is true? What is the reality here? And don't let your feelings cloud over everything else. Practice grounding yourself in God's truth before you even begin to start problem solving. I love in Psalm 42 how David asks of himself, "Why, my soul, are you downcast? Put your hope in God." So your emotions feel strong. That's okay. That doesn't mean that your faith is weak. They're not like on a seesaw here. One's up, the other's down. That's not the way it is. You can still feel strongly and have a strong faith. Just put your hope in God. Include Him in the sorrows of your heart and the outpouring of your heart. He's right there with you to do the heavy lifting and help you. Remember, I think it was Martin Luther that said, feelings come and feelings go, but God's word does not. That's something stable in your life. Question 7. How do I forgive someone when the hurt still feels very present? You've prayed, you've tried to move forward, but something triggers the memory again, and the pain resurfaces again. Forgiveness is often less like flipping a switch and more like repeatedly laying something down before God. Sometimes the healing happens in layers, and forgiving someone does not automatically mean trusting them again, minimizing what happened, pretending it didn't hurt, or removing boundaries. That's very important to say that. Try to distinguish forgiveness from reconciliation. Those are two different things. And allow grief to coexist with forgiveness, because sometimes you're going through grief. Maybe you've had a loss of a friendship and that causes grief in your heart. That's understandable. So grief can coexist with forgiveness. Pray blessing before feelings fully align, and release the need to keep processing the case internally. You got to release, surrender the outcome at some point. Be kind and compassionate, always forgiving each other. Well, I absolutely love doing this episode because I think so many women like you carry silent questions and assume they're the only ones struggling. You are not alone in these thought battles. You are not alone in emotional exhaustion or overthinking. You are not alone in trying to renew your mind while still feeling very human. Your brain is capable of change. I don't want you to forget that. Your mind can be renewed. Your thought patterns can shift. Healing is possible. And if you'd like me to answer your question in a future episode, send me a message on Facebook. You can email me you would just email victoria@choosetothinkministry.com, or send a voice note in. You can even attach it to, depending on where you're listening to the podcast, you can put a comment there on that episode. You can also ask a question on YouTube. Put your comment in the question. I would love to see what you're thinking these days. Your question may be the exact encouragement that another woman needs too. So I hope this has helped you. God bless you. Thank you so much for tuning in.
And that's a wrap, Brain Changer. And listen, if you like what you hear, would you leave us a 1 to 2 sentence review at Apple Podcasts? Share the link with a friend or tag me on your share on social media. It would mean the world to me and would help us to keep shining the light of Christ and sharing the good news to others who are in need of encouragement. Please visit us on our website at choosetothinc.co. That's with the number 2, choosetothinc.co, to get on our monthly newsletter list. And if you need a guest speaker for your next women's retreat or church event, I'm your gal. Email me at choosetothinc@gmail.com, and that's with the number 2, choosetothinc@gmail.com. Finally, I offer limited free mentoring sessions each month where you and I can chat to help you develop a strategy for your thoughts in any area of your life. I'm a certified life coach and I have something to share. Visit choosetothink.co and click on mentoring for more details. Also, keep in mind that the messages on this show are for informational and educational purposes only. Please consult your medical doctor for all medical issues. Thank you again for tuning in. God bless you.